for the event today. And very quickly, we would welcome up stage to speak briefly on that keynote or the topic from aid dependence to self-reliance, Mr. Sunday Ogidigbo, founder, HRelief and Gratis School. Please a warm round of applause for the next 15 minutes. Yes, as it sets the scene for this event. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I will stand on all existing protocol, and we just get straight into the business of the morning. I'm delighted that we're all here this morning, and it's strategic that this is happening here at the UN House. And I believe that there's no better time than now to have a meeting like this. A wise man said, there is nothing wrong with the black race. And he also said, black does not equal lack. And as we are looking at the timeless rules for leadership and business, it's important for us as Nigerians, as the country with the largest black population in the world. It is said that 1 out of every 3 black men you see is a Nigerian. It is important for us to reflect on the mentality that has come to define our continent, that has come to define us as a people. And as younger Nigerians and gatekeepers of our own generation, it is important for us to have the proper mindset. And one of those things that we need to reflect on is that we should not have that mindset of depending on support, external support from the wealthy nations, in quote. We must begin to look within ourselves and to stand as a people. And because once Nigeria rises, Africa will rise. Nations, businesses, and individuals will rise when they shift their mindset from being consumers, from being aid dependent, to become value creators. Our continent is the richest on paper. And we cannot begin to tap the great potential on our continent, and particularly in our country, if we don't have the proper mindset. There is nothing wrong with aid. Aid is not evil. But aid should not be permanent. Aid suggests that you need help for a season. But when that which is supposed to be temporary becomes permanent, then abnormality has set in. Because when you are aid dependent, you are like a cripple. Because your legs are given to you to stand and to run and to walk. But when you can't use your legs and you now need crutches to move, you agree with me that your speed will be lost. You will not be able to operate at optimum capacity, because your natural means of movement, you have disabled it. Now it's different when you're on crutches because you had an accident. But if you understand anything about mobility, when you don't use your legs, you lose the ability to use them. That's why when people have accidents and they they have been reading for a long time, they will begin to learn how to walk again. Africa has depended too long on aid, and I think one of the best things to have happened is the policy of Donald Trump to shut down most of this aid process and aid agencies that are funding a lot of things in Africa. It is time for us as individuals, as organizations, and as a nation and a continent to begin to think of how we'll move from that mindset. Because when aid becomes a strategy, the future is lost. The future belongs to people and organizations that are ready to build dependence, not building their future based on aid. Because when your strategy and your plans are all tied to support you can get externally, then you are at the mercy of your donors. If they cough, you can die of cold. If they freeze it, you can be paralyzed. A lot of jobs disappeared within 24 hours because of one policy pronouncement of Donald Trump. There are people that I know personally. There are a lot of organizations that have been operating for more than 20 years that died overnight because of the policy of Donald Trump. And it is good for us to begin to think at this moment in time that we should not even be the one looking for aid. We should be the one giving out. It is better to give than to receive. Over the years, Africa has depended a lot on aid, and we have little or nothing to show for it. Because aid is supposed to be temporary. There's a story in the book that was told about the man that fell into hard time. He was robbed on his way down to Samaria, and he fell into the hand of robbers, and they ripped him of everything that he had. And a rich man met him and supported him. I think it would be foolish for that man to want to now live permanently on support. The idea of the little money that was given to care for him was supposed to be for a season. Those of us in this room, and as many that are connected online, we must begin to think, how long can we go like this? We need to begin to build systems and structures that will sustain self-reliance, self-sustaining models for our businesses, for organizations, for our NGOs. We begin to gain the respect of the Committee of Nations and other individuals even around us when you start a social enterprise. One of the biggest NGOs in the world operated, I think, out of Malaysia or so. And what they did, they started building their organization from the scratch. And any aid that they had was to support what they are doing, not as a lifeline or as the mainstay of the organization. So 2-3 things quickly before I step out of your face. We need to shift from survivor thinking to value creation. I run the HRelief Foundation, and from the beginning we started telling ourselves that we are not going to apply for any aid. We are not going to apply for any aid, any grant, anywhere. We've been approached with, even the few times people have come to ask, I said, don't worry, let us begin to build something that can sustain itself. Something that is self-sustaining. Let us create value within ourselves. Let's look within ourselves. Let's look within our own environment. Let's look within our communities. Because if you go to the US, most of the NGOs and the social enterprises that they run in those places, they operate within their own reality, within their own ecosystem. And that is what we started doing there. We don't want to survive. We want to thrive. And the only way to thrive is to create value, because value naturally attracts. When you create value and people see that you are solving problems and you are doing it sustainably, you will attract support without begging for it. And whatever support that comes, it will not be 80% of your operation. It might be just 5 or 10%. When you are aid dependent, you have a needy mindset. You'll be waiting for interventions. And your thinking will be short term. You'll be going cap in hand. Help me, help me, help me mindset. That is not good for anyone. Nobody will respect you if you come into this room with cap in hand, a pot in hand, a cup in hand, and you are begging for money. And the first thing you do when you see somebody begging you, you begin to look at them. Is anything wrong with him? Is he crippled? Is he blind? Is he maimed? And they check us. Nothing is wrong with us. What is broken is our mind. So we need to focus on value creation. We need to focus on solutions, initiating solutions, creative solutions, using available resources around us to solve our problems. We can turn our trash to cash without anybody asking, without getting any support from anywhere. There are things within our environment that we can use to create value. We must innovate, and we must be very confident in ourselves. We must stand with that sense of confidence, carrying ourselves as royalties. You can never rise above the quality of value that you bring to the table. What are the values you are creating in your space? What are the values you are creating in your sector? Countries that have moved from poverty to prosperity, they looked inward. If you read the book From Third World to First World, the story of Singapore, you will see that Singapore was completely disadvantaged. On 2 occasions, they were part of Malaysia. They were kicked out of Malaysia. They begged. They rejoined Malaysia. They kicked them out the second time. Because initially they had the mindset that if they are not part of Malaysia, they cannot survive. But they had a prime minister that was radical, that had a different mindset. They said, look, the only thing we have as Singaporeans is our spirit and our beach. Our spirit and our sand. What can we do with our people? What can we do with our sand? A city-state, smaller than Abuja. And they started looking within themselves. They don't have not a single natural resource, not a single natural resource. They looked inward and they started saying, let us tap into the mind of our people. They positioned themselves as the alternative to the US in their part of the world, and they started educating themselves. They started attracting investors without begging for it. When you create values, you attract the right people. When you create values, you gain respect. As business leaders, as thought leaders, we must ensure that we are value creators. Beyond selling products, whatever we are selling must be solving a problem. Whatever we are selling must be solving a problem. What problem are you solving? And what are the innovative ways that you are doing this? We need to redefine ourselves by not by the things that we lack, but by the values that we create. Because the images of Africa that you see on CNN and in even some ministries, some ministries in America, they will come to Africa and snap pictures of children that are malnourished, and they are trying to define us by what we lack. Black is not lack. We have a lot of stories of innovation and solution provision around our continent. We must begin to look at these things and see how we can innovate. And finally, we must build systems. We must not be emotional. We must not go around looking for people to pity us. We must be builders of systems. Aid is emotional. Systems are structural. When you build systems, they can be scaled. When you ride on emotions, when the emotion is no more, support will stop coming. It is important for us as leaders to be systematic in our approach to the solutions that we provide, to build processes, to gather data, and build systems that can be scaled locally and internationally. The final thoughts: what you build once emotionally will ultimately collapse. What you build systematically and structurally will stand in your time and even when you're gone. It is time for us to think differently, act differently. Don't allow our emotions to drive us. Allow ourselves to be deliberate and to ensure that we are part of the company of those that will redefine this nation, redefine our continent, and ultimately redefine the black race. Africa is looking for new leaders. Africa is looking for gatekeepers. We cannot stand at the gate of our nation, cap in hand, begging for coins. As we continue in this conference, I want you to open your heart. We have assembled very fine speakers this morning to speak to us. I believe that we're going to leave this place transformed and better positioned to contribute our quota as gatekeepers in this city and our generation. God bless you. Thank you for your time.
A very warm round of applause again for Mr. Ogidigbo. Please make that really warm. Thank you so much. I couldn't help taking notes. Some of the very poignant thoughts that he did mention here. Nations and people will rise when they begin to have a mind shift from being consumers to being value creators. That's